The Naughty List by Red Nova Tyrant. 12 seems to be the age where kids start putting the heat on their parents about the truth behind Santa Claus. I was certainly no exception to this rule. How were Santa's elves able to make that video game that I wanted in their workshop? I thought Nintendo owned Mario. Or the ever more infamous visiting every house in one night question. Did the Jolly Man know some kind of time-extending device? Or perhaps the most obvious question of all, how could he have lived for this long? A lot of people say he trains apprentices, who take his place every few decades. Others claim that he's just immortal. As for everything else, magic seemed to be the universal lie that everybody had agreed on. Whatever the case, I just went with the conclusion that it was my parents' doing. Of course, they'd deny it and claim ignorance if I confronted them, but they weren't able to dissuade my beliefs. So one Christmas Eve, when I couldn't sleep as these questions danced among my dreams of sugar cereal and new games, I decided to investigate the noise coming from my living room. This time, surely, I would catch my mom or dad in the act of stowing presents under the tree. At least then they'd let me in on the truth. But as I entered the living room, I saw a man before me that I didn't recognize. He was dressed in red and white, slightly overweight body, and he wore a stringy fake white beard. His hair, or what remained of it, was graying around the edges, and his classic Santa hat. His eyes were wide with fright as he dropped the present under the tree. Being the intuitive youth that I was, I came to one of two conclusions. Either this was a home invader stealing my family's gifts, or it was the real Santa. I opened up my mouth to scream, but the man rushed toward me and covered my mouth. Shh, 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 shh. Putting a finger to his mouth, trying to smile, tears began to roll down my cheeks. I was petrified of this man. Then slowly, he took his hand back and extended it toward me. "It's all right there, little one. You know who I am, right?" I nodded, not shaking his hand back. The trembling man nodded as well, then grabbed an empty sack lying on the floor and gestured toward the tree. "Look, see? I bring gifts. Now run along to bed, or I might have to put you on the naughty list." He started drifting toward the deeper, hearty voice stereotypically associated with Kris Kringle, but I wasn't fooled. Regardless, I wiped my eyes and began to step back from the living room, trying to create some distance between me and the stranger. The man simply watched, wiped his brow, and proceeded to approach the fireplace. I stopped and observed, confused as how he was going to leave my house. But a blast of green flames erupted from the chimney, and the man fell back on the floor. I couldn't see his face, but I'm certain that it was twisted in fear, just like my own. A massive bony hand spawned from the fire. An arm followed, was draped in a raggedy fur. Then another arm. Then a skull of some wild creature with two large horns that followed, nearly as large as the fireplace itself. The bones popped and snapped as it slammed its hands onto the floor. The monster was engulfed in the flame, yet it didn't seem to burn anything in the house. "Eddie," the monster declared, speaking to what I guessed was the man on the floor. No, Eddie shouted back. "I did my part. See, 10,000 houses, just like you said, right? 10,000, I did my..." "And yet you allowed a human child to see you. You know the rules." Look, I've learned my lesson. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Just let me go, please. Please, I delivered all the..." "Let you go? Did you let that woman go, Eddie? I don't seem to recall you letting her go. This was your second chance, and you've wasted it." "What are you gonna do?" Eddie whispered. I could make out the quaking figure being overshadowed by the creature in the fireplace. The next sound I heard was a crunch, with a soft beginning and a snapping finish. I jumped as the sound repeated a few times, finally letting out a shaky breath. I prayed in my head that it wasn't what I thought, but when the creature reared its head towards me, I saw the red and white pants hanging from its mouth. It chewed Eddie's corpse, and then watched it slurp his legs like strands of spaghetti. I covered my eyes. I tried to tell myself that it wasn't real. It wasn't real. It wasn't real. And after a quiet minute, I peeked into my fingers. I saw the monster staring back at me from the fireplace. The pace of my breathing grew quicker. It grew sharper. My eyes were unable to escape the grasp of those empty sockets. Now run off back to bed, little one, or else I might put you on the naughty list. My legs found the strength to leave, and I sprinted up from my parents' room, diving into the sheets with them. There wasn't a trace of the events of the night before when my family went down to the tree the next morning. There was even a little note on an empty glass of milk and a half-eaten cookie on the table. Have a Merry Christmas, S. Claus. As much as I tried to take in the warm, comforting atmosphere that day that came with Christmas, I couldn't stop watching the fireplace. I was terrified that monster would return. At least now I know the truth about Santa Claus. That was a pretty good different story. I kind of like the ambiance of it. That was pretty good. Guys, if you want to see more like this, let me know in the comments down below. Please do all that stuff YouTube likes, liking, sharing, etc., etc. Thank you so much for watching, and have a lovely evening.